So, mm, hello there. I'm going to be talking about my research paper on the societal racism portrayed in Rankin's Citizen. I first started off by discussing Rankin's ability to draw the reader in. I used this source, which was an article by Karen Simek that discussed the 3 forms of intimacy to attract a reader's attention. The first was the intimacy through listening. And Rankin did this in the beginning where she talked about scenes of like everyday monotony. And this allowed for the reader to be drawn in a little bit. And when she discussed some microaggressions or other feelings that many other minorities feel, this gave the intimacy through identifying, where these people could identify with what Rankin was saying. And then later on, Rankin shares different experiences from athletes such as Serena Williams and the French soccer player. I forget his name, but she uses their examples to shed a light for those who may not have experienced any of this or don't understand it to the extent that she does. So this draws the reader in and lays a basis for those who have not experienced any of the things that she talks about in the book. And then after discussing the ways that she brings readers in and sheds light on a lot of the way that minorities feel, I talk about microaggressions, which is a big part of the book. And Rankin tries to shed light on often overlooked microaggressions that minorities face daily, which is a big problem. And I think that Rankin tries to shed light on this to try and lessen this problem. So microaggression, what is it? It's a statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group, such as a racial or ethnic minority. Rankin, she uses many examples throughout the book. One is of an African-American woman going to a trauma psychiatrist who doesn't realize that she's meeting with an African-American and yells at her to get off her property as soon as she comes. This obviously not ideal for a trauma psychiatrist, and this really shows how truly striking it is to the person who encounters this, and even to like the audience. Like it's something that nobody would think a trauma psychiatrist would end up doing something like this. This is a pretty egregious act. But Rankin uses examples like this to try and instill to those who have not experienced this what it's like to go through your life with stuff like this constantly happening. She also talks about there was this woman with her child on the subway, and he got pushed over by somebody who obviously didn't care and was not trying to help the child up. So she screamed to him and said, "Hey, like what the heck? Like this is not okay. Like at least help him up." So this one at least ended a little bit more positively with a group of people standing behind her and supporting her. Moving on to the integrated artwork that Rankin uses throughout the book. She uses a lot of multiple works of art from a lot of different artists, many of which are minorities. The one that I focused on was Nick Cave. He had Rankin included a picture of one of his sound suits that was on page 33, and so I thought that was very interesting because I just thought the image was interesting just to include. And then I dove a little deeper into Nick Cave and what these sound suits actually represent. And so after reading a New York Times article by Megan O'Grady, she stated that he initially conceived of them as a raceless, genderless, and classless armature of the wearer, one that's both insulating and isolating. And this really articulated his profound sense of vulnerability as a Black man. I thought that was extremely interesting, and those suits they seem very complicated and hard to maintain. So I just wanted to take a deeper look at that, and I can see why she included it, because it appears that this is the way that a Black man feels. Like they're very isolated and vulnerable, and so they have to put on a completely different face to people who they really are, because they don't want to experience a lot of the microaggressions and things that happen to people of minority races and cultures. And I wanted to ask a few questions. Do you think societal racism has changed since Citizen was published? How has it changed? Do you see a foreseeable future for racist groups such as the KKK? When do you think they will meet their demise, if you think there is no future for them? And how can people be better citizens and protect those who are attacked emotionally and physically on a constant basis? So